Bom dia a todos, dando sequência ao nosso segundo dia de seminário, com o painel Everyday Normalization of Violence in Defense of Society. Meu nome é Jana. Ontem eu esqueci de me apresentar, então aproveito para me apresentar hoje. Meu nome é Jana, sou professora do Departamento de Relações Internacionais da UERJ. Que lindo, gente! Mas, com minha formação toda aqui no Instituto de Relações Internacionais da PUC, então é sempre bom estar aqui com os meus colegas e amigos queridos num seminário tão importante. Bom, antes de eu começar, tenho uma grande alegria de estar mediando esse painel com a professora Vera Malaguti e a professora Vitória Bachan, aqui ao meu lado. E atrás de mim vai aparecer a professora Cynthia Enlow, que, infelizmente, não pôde voar, pegar o voo dela para o Brasil em função do furacão Dorian, que fechou alguns aeroportos, inclusive um dos que estavam na rota dela. Então, infelizmente, ela não pôde viajar para o Brasil, mas se dispôs a participar. Com muita alegria, então, que agora o nosso painel está completo, com a presença da professora Cynthia Enlow. Eu vou fazer a apresentação, eu vou introduzir, as três palestrantes, professoras, e depois a gente começa logo com a Cynthia Enlow, garantindo a nossa boa conexão. Então, a professora Cynthia Enlow é professora de pesquisa no Departamento de Desenvolvimento Internacional, Comunidade e Meio Ambiente, afiliada à Ciência Política e aos estudos sobre mulheres e gêneros, todos na Clark University, nos Estados Unidos. A carreira de Cynthia Enlow inclui a Fulbright na Malásia e na Guiana, aulas convidadas no Japão, Grã-Bretanha, Canadá, Austrália e Nova Zelândia, além de palestras na Suécia, Noruega, Islândia, Alemanha, Portugal, Chile, Vietnã, Coreia, Colômbia, Bósnia, Turquia e Brasil. E universidades nos Estados Unidos. Atualmente, atua nos conselhos consultivos editoriais do Jornal Internacional Feminista de Política, Diálogo de Segurança, Mulheres, Política, Sociologia Política Internacional, estudos estudos críticos sobre militarismo, e é membro da Rede Acadêmica Internacional da WILPF. Bom, dando sequência, teremos a fala da professora Vitória Bachan, que, antes de ingressar na Cardiff University, trabalhou na Universidade de Exeter. Antes disso, ela possui vários anos na Universidade de Bristol, obtendo seu diploma de graduação em Política Social, concluindo seu doutorado em Gênero, Raça e Sexualidade nas Forças Armadas Britânicas e realizando uma bolsa de pós-doutorado da ESRC. Durante esse tempo, também foi bolsista visitante na York Center for International and Security Studies, Toronto, Canadá. Os interesses de pesquisa da professora Vitória consistem no campo de estudos militares críticos, nas interseções das relações internacionais feministas, geopolítica crítica e sociologia política internacional. Seu trabalho procura explorar como a guerra e a preparação para a guerra moldam a vida cotidiana das pessoas e como a vida cotidiana pode, por sua vez, influenciar e facilitar a guerra e outros resultados geopolíticos. Está particularmente interessada em como gênero, raça, etnia, sexualidade e classe social moldam a priorização, uso e perpetração da força militar, especialmente nas sociedades democráticas liberais. Muito obrigada por aceitar o nosso convite, estar aqui conosco, Vitória. E, finalmente, a professora Vera Malaguti, aqui ao meu lado, é bacharel em Ciências Políticas e Sociais pela Pontifícia Universidade Católica do Rio de Janeiro, licenciada em Sociologia com ênfase em Metodologia pela Universidade, pela Autônoma de Herédia, mestre em História Social pela Universidade Federal Fluminense, doutor e pós-doutor em Saúde Coletiva pelo Instituto de Medicina Social da UERJ. Pesquisador do grupo EPOS, Genealogia, Subjetivações e Violências, também na UERJ, professora adjunta de Criminologia da Faculdade de Direito da UERJ, professora convidada do curso de pós-graduação em Criminologia e Direito Penal do Instituto Superior do Ministério Público do Estado do Rio de Janeiro. Tá. professora convidada do curso de pós-graduação em Criminologia do IBCCRIM, em São Paulo, ex-membro do Instituto Latino-Americano das Nações Unidas para a Prevenção do Delito, ex-professora do Programa de Pós-Graduação em Sociologia e Direito da UF, ex-professora de Criminologia do Programa de Mestrado em Direito da Universidade Cândido Mendes e secretária-geral do Instituto Carioca de Criminologia e diretora da revista Discursos Sediciosos, Crime, Direito e Sociedade. Muito obrigada às 3 professoras por integrarem esse painel. Então, eu começo o painel com a fala da professora Cynthia Enlow. The floor is yours.
Oh, dear. Hi, everybody. First thing is I just want to apologize deeply for not being there in person. We can blame it on climate change, and that means blaming my absence on all the climate change deniers. I'm delighted to be here. I am so grateful to Jana and to Manu and to all the wonderful organizers. Has everyone applauded the translators? Have you applauded the translators today yet? I mean, we all sound better in Portuguese, don't you think? The topic, and I know Vera and Victoria will have really interesting things to share with us. I think the most radical or alarming, maybe the most alarming term that Manu and Jana gave this session is the term in English, formalization. And I find it alarming because it's a process that creeps into our heads and creeps into our everyday interactions. And that creeping means that we sometimes are complicit without realizing it. That is, we begin to take things as normal, even if we think we're opposed to them. Let me give you 3 examples. As soon as the topic for this session was sent to me, I began trying to go into my own mental archives and think about when I was surprised by something that I thought was normal, turned out not to be normal. By the way, I'd suggest to all of us, including myself, trying to make this list, that we all keep personal logs or diaries. And we write down every week, every day, every hour, what it is that we realize we've begun to take as normal, that we shouldn't take as normal. And then write down when we realized that it wasn't normal and why. So let me give you 3 examples of when I was kind of caught off guard, if you will, a militarized term. I was caught off guard by my own normalized assumptions. This wasn't the first, but this is one of the ones. This is about militarization. I'm only talking about that. There are other kinds of normalizations that are also insidious, especially around racism. I was in Iceland. I teach in Iceland for a week every year, have for about the past 10 years. And it's a great group of mainly African mid-career civil servants and NGO activists who come to Iceland for 5 months, leave their families behind, to engage in gender training so they can go home and infuse their own work in the ministries of agriculture, or the ministries of education, or in women's rights NGOs with more gender consciousness. So it was this group of about 20, mainly African, also Palestinian and Afghan. They're called fellows when they come to Iceland, capital F fellows. We went to visit and have lunch with the president of Iceland. The president of Iceland lives in a presidential house, definitely not a palace. There are no palaces in Iceland. A very healthy son. We went in a van out just outside of Reykjavik. Reykjavik is the capital town, south of the city, capital town of Iceland. And we went out and you pass lava fields. That's just your normal landscape in Iceland, landscape of lava fields. And then the driver said, oh, you'll see up ahead the president's house. Now, it was sitting all by itself. It wasn't in a neighborhood. It was sitting all by itself. And we could see it about a half mile away. And the van turned into the president's house. And as a militarized American, I thought, where are the fences? And then I thought, I mean, really, this is almost visceral. This is almost physical. Don't you notice that yourself? That when something that you expect isn't there, you almost feel it physically? And so I kind of physically reacted to the fact there were no fences, no walls, and no guardhouses. I kept thinking, oh, well, they must be closer to the house. So we're in this van, 20 of us, and we went up to the president's house. We parked next door to it. There was nobody outside. Iceland doesn't have a military, by the way, like Costa Rica. But there was nobody outside. And certainly nobody was saluting or asking for our identification or even saying, who the hell are you? I mean, so we all got out of the van. I mean, really, I was almost physically stopped. And we went up to the door and we, quote, knocked on the door. And a person opened the door to greet us, and it was the president. Now, there are a couple of things down here. First of all, Icelandic feminists will tell you that Iceland is not nirvana. Iceland is not heaven. Iceland is not totally free of misogyny or sexism. It ranks very high in the narrowness of gender inequality. It ranks the highest in the world for the last 5 years in the small gap between men and women's status in economics, politics, health, and education. But it is so little militarized that it has an effect on gender inequality. That is, it doesn't widen it. Let me give you a second example. In this same group, but a different year, there were a group of fellows, mid-career civil servants from Malawi, a country in Southern Africa, and sitting with them in the classroom were a group of civil servants from Mozambique. And many of you here in the room, I think, probably follow Mozambique and Angola politics. And my job is to talk about gender militarization when this group of fellows. And so we were talking about it and talking about, well, I asked the question as a way of getting at how deeply militarized are various countries. There are also people in the room from Kenya, Uganda. And I said, so what would your mother think about your brother deciding to join the country's military? Which is just one way to begin to have a good conversation about the everydayness of militarization. And the Mozambican fellows said, oh, well, my mother used to think it would be a very good thing for the family if at least one of her sons joined the Mozambican military. Although nowadays, I don't think she'd be so enthusiastic. But certainly for a number of years, that would have sounded like a good family strategy, because the Mozambican military is so influential in Mozambican affairs. And it was really interesting because the Malawians sitting right next to them kind of looked at them in puzzlement. And one after another, the Malawians said, oh, my mother would never encourage one of my brothers to go into the military. Going into the military is not something that enhances either a young man's or the family's influence or well-being. And really, the Mozambicans and the Malawians looked at each other as if they were from different planets. But it was a really good kind of opening of all our eyes of how normalized militarism could be in one place and so unnormalized in another. Now, the deeply gendered quality of everyday militarization, I think, is presumptions about who's protecting whom. And I'm sure Vera and Victoria think about this a lot, and probably out in the room there, you all think about this a lot. The feminization of the protected and the masculinization of the protected. And it seeps into everyday life every time a mother or a father, and they might disagree, by the way, every time a mother or a father says to the boy in the family, now be a big man. I mean, he may be 10 years old. Be a big man and protect your sister. Well, that's how the drip, drip, drip of patriarchy works, isn't it? Because supposedly there is violence out there in the world, meaning your neighborhood, your city, your country, the world. And if it's presumed that there is violence out there, and if we're taught we need protection from that violence, then there is the everydayness, the dailiness of teaching some people to be the protectors and other people to take on the job of the protector. And this is very different than being the protector when the hurricane hits, or being the protector when the earthquake rumbles. It is being a protector against other human violence. And the second learning that goes on is the learning of how do you act like a protector. I mean, obviously women and girls are taught to be protectors in the sense of they hug their child in a dangerous situation. They try to get their vulnerable grandmother into a safe place when the rains come. But to protect against human violence, it's oftentimes presumed to require that the protector has to be a skilled wielder of violence himself. And that's insidious. Not sure how insidious translates into Portuguese, but it means sneaky. And it starts so early. So a lot of our trying to roll back normalization is to surprise ourselves and allow ourselves to be surprised by people who refused to normalize things. I'm a big fan of Hannah Arendt. You can see maybe on my, whoops, I'm moving the wrong way. Which way should I? Oh, I can't even figure out, okay. There's behind me on the shelf, in my not very neat study here at home. I'm at home. Actually, the study is even messier than it is, but I kind of tilted the screen so you only see the rest of it. But that whole shelf behind me is all Hannah Arendt. Now, I'm not a Hannah Arendt expert at all, but I think about her a lot. I try to understand her. And you know, she used the word banal, B-A-N-A-L, to describe Eichmann as one of the functionaries of the Nazi Holocaust. And she explains, I just read one of her last interviews. It was given in German, so it was translated into English. And the German interviewer asked her, "What do you mean by banal?" And she said, "I don't mean mere mundane things. Mundane means every day." She said, "What I mean by banal, as in the banality of evil, and I would say the banality of violence." She said, and this has really stuck with me, Hannah Arendt said to the interviewer, "When I say banal, I mean unthinking, without thought, not exercising our human capacity for thought." And I think that's what normalization does to us. It makes us banal. We don't think about the checkpoints. We don't think about soldiers in an airport. We don't think about tanks rolling through a civilian neighborhood. That makes us banal. That makes us thoughtless. And if we're banal, if we stop thinking, then we'll never be able to see patriarchy as one of the roots of the normalization of violence. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Now I'll give the floor to Victoria. You have 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to begin by saying thank you so much to Jana, to Monica, Manuela, and everyone at IRI and PUC-Rio for inviting me and making my trip here to speak to you today possible. I'm really enjoying this event. I hope you are too. I can see some significant synergies between what I'm going to say, what others have said. I promise I didn't sort of correspond with Cynthia, but I think some of the things I'm going to talk about pick up on some of the things that she has already talked about, which is unsurprising, seeing as she's a fantastic mentor and her work inspires me always. I'll be presenting my work in English. I apologise for that. My Portuguese is terrible, and I do not want to garble your beautiful language in my mouth. And also, I'm from the, disunited, I think, kingdom of not-so-Great Britain, and perhaps for not much longer, Northern Ireland. And as such, I've been socialised into a national culture that sort of sees learning other people's languages as some sort of national humiliation, because, we're that colonial force, and we like to spread our language instead. So then, to violence in the defence of society. As Jana already mentioned, my work seeks to answer questions around how everyday practices and practices in everyday life can make war possible, about how prioritising war and preparing for war can make some everyday lives valued and permissible in society and others not so much. I also try to map out when and where war and preparing for it becomes more visible to us, because this can allow us to glimpse how war and preparing for war, or what I call militarism, that's kind of the definition I have of militarism, come to be seen as these logical solutions to all manner of social and political problems, something Cynthia talks about in her work a lot, and also sometimes where that logic kind of breaks down and where we might kind of create space for contestation. And my work has led me to lots of conclusions, but the one I'd like to focus on a bit today, which I've also written about, is this idea that the primary logic of war is essentially one of disposability, and that the normalization of war, preparing for war, and of normalizing disposability is constituted in no small way by everyday performances of fear, desire, and ambivalence, and sort of everyday quest for belonging, and the sort of longing for belonging. So militarism, which I've said I define as the normalization of war and the kind of constant preparedness for it, which takes multiple forms, is very enticing. It's very seductive. As we've already heard, military power comes in multiple forms, and we can see things like deploying soldiers in the aftermath of a terrorist attack as calming, right? As something that we kind of want to see. And certainly a lot of European populations have reacted that way in recent years. We can see things like air shows, big displays of military technology and power, military museums, that kind of thing, as desirable. These are ways to kind of occupy children on a day out, right? Something Jana is very familiar with. And we can be very ignorant, ambivalent, banal, unthinking, as Cynthia has said, about all sorts of things. So the tax subsidies that our governments make to these big companies who talk the language of defence and security solutions, but these are actually purveyors of weapons, destructions, violence. In order for some lives to be worth living, to be free of fear, to be desirable, other lives need to be disposed of, or at least marginalised and made incredibly precarious. And particularly when those lives are seen to infringe upon, the lives that are worthy, right? This is when we see this face-off often happening. As Michael Billig has argued, to quote him, all societies that maintain armies maintain the belief that some things are more valuable than life itself. And Billig, importantly, does not say states, but societies. He's a sociologist and geographer, right? And he talks about society. And as Mark Salter has explained, it's not only states that make the price of an everyday life removed from this insecurity governance, right? We also come to often think about managing ourselves and governing ourselves, as Foucault has talked about technologies of the self and so on. Foucault says, we want to be part of these societies, these social entities, part of the nation, part of the state. This belonging is very much, is very seductive. And in order to be part of those communities of feeling, to use a term the sociologist Mabel Berezin uses, we often come to see others as not part of those communities, right? Because in order for us to feel that we belong and have some traction within these communities, we often have to have an other. Now, Billig's concept of banal nationalism, there's that word again that Hannah Arendt has used, is really helpful in alerting us to those everyday, seemingly innocuous representations, performances of nationhood and belonging that constitute most social and political communities. By stressing how humdrum, to borrow a phrase from Cynthia, activities such as national sporting events, dividing the news into the domestic and the international, and making decisions on the content of national curricula can be, how that constitute communities through repetition and normalization. Billig has used this to challenge the idea that nationalism is an extremist ideology or an exceptional phenomenon. And similarly, a lot of literature has sought in the past to cast militarism as something that is very ideological, very much about bellicosity and jingoism, and very active and very visible. But of course, a lot of important work, particularly Cynthia's, other feminist scholars, and increasingly, I hope, my own transdisciplinary field of critical military studies, we've been more readily asking these questions about how it is that war, preparations for war, and military power in all its diffuse forms are facilitated through a variety of social and political practices, many of which, arguably, often bear little or no relation to the typical notions of this idea that military security is about protecting the nation from threats that are external to it. So it's at this level of social practices that I think we can see how fears, desires, and ambivalence normalize war and its logics of disposability. Militarism produces diffuse and often uneven effects within as well as without societies, and this is why, as post-colonial and feminist scholars have long argued, it's vital to look to the everyday. Because whereas, to quote Dowler and Sharp, the construction of a single national identity may seem obvious at a global scale, it's less clear when viewed by way of socio-spatial forces such as gender, race, and class. Everyday experiences remind us that despite state claims to the contrary, war and preparing for it breeds insecurity and disposability for some, and the ability to just keep calm and carry on, to use that much lauded phrase, for others. Fear is perhaps the most visible of these. Citizens, and not only the state, must now be vigilant and assist the military project of eliminating dangerous bodies in our midst that move against us, who threaten to disrupt our everyday shopping, our entertainment, other forms of us going about our business, and business is important here, right? There's a political economy to all of this, of course. This vigilance is necessary not only because they pose an immediate threat to us, but because their elimination allows us to rebuild ourselves as more civilized, more developed, more democratic, or whatever notion of superiority befits the society in question. In many contemporary European societies, the onus is on Muslims to prove they are like us and not like them. Or else, and this is perhaps why in the UK, for example, you can buy a hijab that's adorned with poppies to show that you respect fallen soldiers. Fallen soldiers, that's another horrific euphemism, right? Dead soldiers. Desire is also a significant facilitator of militarism. The anthropologist Gerald Sider conceptualizes the everyday as an achievement, as those ways in which people actually work through and against the chaos, the rupture, the discontinuity that so often shapes their lives. In our desire for such forms of life, it's very easy to forget or deliberately ignore that many people throughout the world cannot easily socially reproduce themselves, not least because, to quote Sider, the larger society is rewarded when they don't make it, they leave, or they die. Think here perhaps about European approaches to migration as a crisis that suggests that the crisis is for Europeans, not refugees. If refugees die swimming to our shores, or if we deploy our naval forces to detain them and expel them, we can carry on regardless. But if they make it, our desired everyday lives are often characterized as being under threat. The space we occupy may shrink. The public services we use may be under pressure, and so on. Better to dispose with the problem. Now, although as Stanko and many others have warned us, the potential for violence is something that characterises the everyday lives of anyone, especially women, who've ever felt the need to stay alert on the streets and so on. There are, of course, lives that are characterised by more socially and materially violent everyday struggles. And frequently these lives are cast as a drain or scourge on society. They're made abject by terms like scrounger, benefit dependent, single mother, migrant, asylum seeker, ethnic minority, Muslim, refugee, slum or favela dweller, etc. Each label shapes what Cider calls people's, quote, grounded expectations of a livable tomorrow. The desires of the many to carry on regardless obscure these gendered, biopolitical, racialized and socioeconomic struggles, however, and the desire for an ordinary everyday life should not be underestimated, therefore. Indeed, it takes on a profound, if often taken for granted, unthinking importance, not least, again to quote Cider, because it belongs to the people who have it. It is their time, their space, what makes their moments and their interactions their space and place. Others intrude, and if they intrude, sometimes they have to be removed by force. Now, the strong desire for an everyday, for ordinariness, can also facilitate the final thing that I want to talk about, which is ambivalence. Not just fear, not just desire. Zygmunt Bauman, who I'm a massive fan of, argued that ambivalence is the overriding condition of modernity. This is because, contrary to the promise that modernity would generate some sort of well of infallible knowledge and clarity about human life with all our scientific endeavour and so on, our lives are instead defined by uncertainty and insecurities that threaten the orderliness or the supposed orderliness of the world, and this sort of ideal that everything should be orderly. This confounds our ability to calculate the meaning of practices and events and to see sometimes the relevance of our memorized patterns of action. So ambivalence towards militarism, to war, to constantly preparing for it, I think can thrive in such conditions precisely because militarism becomes so normalized and it's held up as a solution to the chaos, right? So this is how we can be unthinking about it. We live in a chaotic world, we therefore kind of need force and so on. We need security, we need military power, and let's just forget about it and be ambivalent towards it. So to wrap up then, in everyday sites and spaces, I think it's possible to discern support for war and war preparedness, but also, of course, opposition, contestation, ambivalence, ignorance. Multiple ways of thinking about these things exist. But what I would suggest is most significant is not what or how many people believe about the validity of waging war, but the fact that that support, that opposition, that ignorance, that ambivalence, that fear, and so on, are all possible reactions for most members of societies, precisely because they do have an everyday. And that's a luxury to think about those things. It's a luxury to sit in this space as an academic and be able to ask those questions. Continuing to pay your taxes, wave flags at military and monarchical parades where applicable, purchasing poppies or whatever symbols in remembrance of the fallen, they may not seem like the most deliberate or obvious sites of militarism, but as Hannah Arendt warned us, banal does not mean innocuous. It's by paying attention, I think, to the everyday modalities of war that we might begin to challenge the belief that society must be defended in Foucault's terms, and consider how the notion of an everyday, of a singular society, encourages disposability and militarism. Thank you.
Dando sequência ao painel, passa a palavra, então, à professora Vera Malaguti.
Bom, boa tarde a todos. É uma alegria estar aqui e queria agradecer muito a professora Jana, a professora Manu, toda a equipe organizadora e saudar minhas companheiras de mesa, a professora Cíntia e a professora Vitória. Então, eu vou usar aqui uma reflexão que eu tenho trabalhando crime e guerra no Brasil contemporâneo. Tá? Então, uma virada fundamental na criminologia é aceitar o giro epistemológico proposto por Massimo Pavarini, um grande criminólogo italiano, sabemos que, para entender a questão criminal, temos que decifrar a demanda por ordem de cada conjuntura histórica. Não adianta trabalhar em cima do objeto, do foco, se a gente não entender qual é a demanda por ordem. Então, uma análise da questão criminal no Brasil contemporâneo exige que voltemos um pouco no tempo. Ao longo de mais de 30 anos do fim do ciclo militar ao sul da América, podemos observar uma crescente obsessão pela segurança pública. Nilo Batista já nos alertou quanto ao perigo desse campo estar comprometido, aspas, com a imposição de penas, ou seja, a serviço da inflição autorizada e medida de dor a uma pessoa humana. É isso que é pena. Ele aponta como Stuart Mill afirmava que o primeiro elemento do sentimento de justiça residiria no desejo de punir. E Nilo diz, tive ganas de responder, justiça é há séculos a palavra mais pronunciada nas proximidades de todos os cadafalsos no Ocidente cristão. Ele mostra também o fracasso da segurança como bem jurídico e a sua expansão às custas das garantias individuais ou da segurança individual. É por essa razão que os governos do campo de esquerda que tiverem conhecimento da ampla histórica reflexão crítica sobre a questão criminal, porque nunca tem, né, devem tentar construir políticas públicas de contenção e redução de danos do poder punitivo e não expandi-lo através de modulações e modernizações. Ao longo de mais de 20 anos de pesquisa, pudemos observar a crescente demanda por segurança pública, proporcional à crescente insegurança produzida pelo capitalismo contemporâneo. O grande e saudoso coronel da Polícia Militar, Carlos Magno Nazaré Cerqueira, assassinado há 20 anos atrás, por ser exatamente o avesso, né, do que se espera de um comandante da Polícia Militar, foi comandante da Polícia Militar nos 2 governos do Brizola, primeiro comandante negro no Brasil. Ele escreveu, nos anos 90, sobre o seu assombro com a remilitarização da segurança pública, já em curso apenas 10 anos após a, entre aspas, democratização no Brasil. Com o Bolsonaro no poder agora, essas aspas fazem muito mais sentido, né, quando a gente está falando de redemocratização. Podemos demarcar aí a rápida passagem dos projetos no sentido de novas políticas públicas no setor para uma crescente ânsia de segurança ancorada nos medos históricos advindos da paisagem da memória escravista. O Rio de Janeiro foi um dos centros do escravismo brasileiro e o medo branco foi sempre o grande vetor de políticas de truculência e extermínio contra a movimentação da população afrodescendente pelas ruas da cidade. Suas estratégias de sobrevivência, resistência e suas próprias existências foram sempre alvo de corporações policiais brutais e brutalizantes. A tortura e a morte dos corpos negros é uma permanência histórica de longa duração em nossa história e uma espécie de paisagem natural do nosso cotidiano. Aquilo que a professora Cíntia, né, mais se preocupa, né, com essa banalização. Tá? Nos anos 90, assistimos no Brasil ao que Wakanda analisou como a articulação das políticas econômicas e assistenciais do projeto neoliberal com o que chamamos de adesão subjetiva à barbárie. Trabalhando o conceito de barbárie, e eu aprendi isso com o Marildo Menegatti, com excesso de civilização e não seu contraponto. A crescente demanda coletiva por castigo e punição se associa à expansão e reorganização da prisão e seus tentáculos institucionais que reformaram a paisagem sociossimbólica. Na direção da direita e também da esquerda, assistimos à proliferação de novos projetos de segurança, expandindo as teias de controle para além do sistema penal, de uma forma invasiva e capilarizada. Temos observado, nesses 30 anos de pós-ditadura, como passamos da resistência à truculência policial, à sua naturalização e agora ao seu aplauso. O governador do Rio de Janeiro, o presidente da República são frutos, né? O Nilo Batista que diz que o fascismo e o nazismo começam pelo criminal. A guerra contra as drogas foi um vetor fundamental no processo que denominamos de constituição do sujeito matável. O historiador francês Jean-Pierre Bot afirma que, para que aconteça o genocídio, é necessário um sistema de legalidade científica dominado por uma teologia e que essa política seja apresentada para defender o ser coletivo. Zaffaroni demonstra como a letalidade dos sistemas penais latino-americanos produz massacres a conta-gotas que acabam configurando genocídio através de discursos legitimantes do extermínio. Ao tratar ainda nos anos 90 a guerra contra as drogas, numa perspectiva geopolítica, Rosa Del Olmo compreendeu a importância dessa empreitada estadunidense na transição das ditaduras para os regimes, entre aspas, democráticos do Cone Sul. No Brasil, a escalada bélico-penal é introduzida no período mais duro do governo militar para ser conduzida na direção do que Nilo Batista nomeou como política criminal com derramamento de sangue. Rosa Del Olmo já nos havia demonstrado as características dessa empreitada. Militarização crescente das polícias, agora treinadas nos Estados Unidos, estratégias de conflito de baixa intensidade, a partir da experiência da derrota americana para o Vietnã, o deslocamento do inimigo público do guerrilheiro para o traficante, até essas duas categorias serem juntas na categoria de narco-guerrilha, que quem acreditar, boa sorte, vai que é mole, né? A demonização da América Latina como território produtor de coca e cannabis, mas ela também demonstra como essa guerra reconfigura até os serviços de saúde através de pautas de atendimento impostas que nunca foram baseadas em estudos regionais sobre os problemas de saúde pública do nosso continente. Vejam como a pesquisa séria da Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, como ela foi bombardeada, impedida de produzir um esclarecimento sobre a questão das drogas. O mais impressionante seriam as técnicas de neutralização da grande mídia corporativa que sustenta essa economia da guerra, né? Se essa parafernália bélica só aumentou a produção, a comercialização e o consumo das substâncias alcançadas pelo proibicionismo, bem como o aumento da violência, a pergunta é: para que, então, serve essa guerra? Qual é a política pública que só apresenta fracassos nos seus objetivos e que é mantida há 40 anos? Por quê? Porque a morte nas favelas e a violência e a contenção violenta dos pobres talvez tenha sido seu principal objetivo. Há mais de 20 anos pesquisamos os efeitos dessa guerra na juventude pobre do Rio de Janeiro. Ao desenvolver a crítica do capitalismo em tempos de catástrofe, Marildo Menegatti analisa o desenvolvimento da sociedade burguesa imbricada com a ideia da forma de vida em permanente progressão, construindo um modo completamente reificado da memória da linha de curso. O capitalismo seria, então, uma bem-sucedida forma de controle da destrutividade, ancorada no mito, isso é muito importante, que é um mito muito difundido na academia, do monopólio do uso legítimo da violência pelo Estado. Aí mora um perigo muito grande. No entanto, o que se observa é que a revolução da técnica se associa historicamente à ideia de progresso e a uma, como diz Marildo, assombrosa força destrutiva. O que ficou oculto nesse progresso seria a maneira como a necessidade lógica do progresso seria seu reverso, a regressão. A gente tem uma chave aí para entender o aumento da violência durante os anos dos regimes, qual a palavra que eu uso? De esquerda, popular, né? Por aí. A partir da grande crise do capital na década dos 70, do século XX, nenhum Estado nacional pôde bancar o formato de bem-estar social ou welfare state. Para nós, no Rio de Janeiro, o formato de guerra como política é uma realidade concreta e palpável. No Brasil como um todo, a retórica bélica se apresenta na forma de diferentes combates contra a corrupção, contra as drogas, contra o crime. Esse léxico pontua e funda a discursividade dos magistrados, o magistrado combatente, dos promotores, além da transformação de todos os níveis de polícia em combatentes, inclusive a polícia civil, a imagem das ocupações ocidentais no Oriente Médio. Esse deslizamento de uma intensa policização para uma intensa militarização tem efeitos no direito e no processo penal, como atestam os mandados de busca e apreensão coletivas nas favelas, entre aspas, inimigas. As democracias burguesas se convertem rapidamente em máquinas de guerra. As estratégias de congelamento dos gastos públicos em educação e saúde se contrapõem à concentração de investimento nas batalhas da segurança pública. Pensando as condições das mulheres periféricas em tempo de catástrofe, Sheila Nunes Gonçalves, aqui presente, busca articular uma teoria da crise do patriarcado capitalista ancorada na crítica do valor de associação. Ela analisa a violência sexista, o racismo e a criminalização da pobreza na condição das mulheres periféricas em tempo de catástrofe. Ela nos fala do quadro de colapso social do capitalismo que se expressa na fome, nos extermínios étnicos, nos deslocamentos migratórios, no aumento da violência contra a mulher, no hiperencarceramento e na catástrofe climática. Para ela, a barbárie incide, aspas, nos grupos humanos que são o outro do valor, ou seja, a humanidade não branca, ocidental e as mulheres. Ela trata também da relação entre o patriarcado produtor de mercadorias e a guerra. A guerra é protagonista fundamental do capitalismo contemporâneo. A criminologia contracolonial aponta uma saída para o paradoxo que se apresenta. Nós que analisamos a questão criminal devemos servir à manutenção da ordem no capitalismo ou servir para aquilo que Menegatti chamou de dique utópico à barbárie. Biko Agostinho, um criminólogo africano, a partir da sua margem africana, afirma que a consequência imediata do modelo descolonizador seria o deslocamento do foco da punição para a reparação do Holocausto, dando uma de Bolsonaro, Holocausto contra os nativos escravizados na África, nas Américas, na Austrália, na Nova Zelândia e contra os povos do Oriente Médio. No caso brasileiro, a realidade nos incita a percorrer e inventar outros caminhos. A regressão proveniente dos erros de um progressismo acrítico nos apresenta um cenário desolador de expansão da barbárie, aprofundamento da militarização na vida cotidiana e pauta neoliberal na economia. Nossa tarefa, então, é fazer dessa criminologia, em tempos sombrios, uma teoria das lutas dos nossos povos contra o poder punitivo, colonialista e racializante. Nem os povos indígenas e nem os povos africanos, que constituem nossa nacionalidade, trabalhavam o castigo, a pena, como regulador de problemas ou conflitos comunitários. No grandioso romance do escritor cubano Alejo Carpentier, chamado Século das Luzes, vemos como o iluminismo chega ao Caribe com a guilhotina. O primeiro capítulo desse livro maravilhoso, desse escritor maravilhoso, que tem vários livros, né, com metáforas aqui do iluminismo, né, começa com a guilhotina chegando a uma ilha do Caribe. Ao invés de assimilarmos projetos de segurança pública a partir dos países centrais, reproduzindo uma espécie de autocolonização, nos atiramos à proposta de Zaffaroni de trabalhar a questão criminal através da palavra dos nossos mortos, estudando a nossa realidade fora dos esquemas teóricos de atendimento à demanda por ordem do capitalismo, que só tem a nos oferecer a guerra contra nós mesmos. É só assim que poderemos desmontar a histórica e de longa duração constituição do sujeito matável. Muito obrigada.